We have heard some feedback from educators that they missed the live stream. Like, they like that they can go back and look at it, but they really like the live stream when we are offering the live stream, and that they would like that to restart like we had previously.
I have no idea.
Okay.
That's way beyond my technological abilities.
I mean, I'm not working it, but we have heard from a number of people that said
They
that
like
they
to see it
liked
live.
the live stream.
Everybody likes to see me live. It's just not the same when you don't get to see me. Yeah,
See, the issue with that is we go back and we touch up Marty
that's right.
before we post
We like
it,
to airbrush. a little
airbrush
bit.
him a little bit, and so that might.
Is that right? I don't know that that's what you call that anymore.
Marty, it's not like me.
It's like,
There's no airbrush.
yeah, there's just nothing you can do. All right. Let's give her another minute or two.
She likes to text and drive, so I'll text her.
Oh no, don't encourage.
Yeah, don't encourage that.
She can
Well,
always
she's
see
probably
me.
sitting on fair lawn waiting to go up 75.
It wasn't bad. Just getting the zipper.
You know, if you hit it at the right time, it's, and then the next time you go
It
through.
moved pretty good. There was a good
I'm
line.
late to my job because I'm sitting with her. Just text me, tell me I'm late. And then leave earlier tomorrow. She left at 7:30. It shouldn't take you anywhere in Topeka to get to Topeka in 30 minutes. You can get somewhere in Topeka in 20. Oh, let's just watch a rule. But like,
Yeah.
like if she leaves at 7:30, she should be able to get to 21st in Irish.
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she left at 7. She's on time. The other one.
We were also talking, and this isn't on the
Uh-huh.
thing. We were wondering, so a few years ago, we had changed the way that the sick leave works. And you had said we were going to need to use up what the bank was, and we noticed this year that it was evident that the bank has now been used up.
Has been used up.
Right? And so we were kind of wondering we didn't put it in the agreement, what kind of the procedure and how that works.
Sure.
And so we were kind of wondering if you would give us an overview of
When we get a request,
specifically.
The first thing we do is we'll make certain that they want that to be the case, because there's certain information that's going to be released. And then we will send out a message to the building first,
Okay,
and then we'll go, depending on what that response is, whether we need to go to the entire district.
Okay.
When we do that.
okay,
And it just depends, because what I've discovered is that it can range anywhere from someone asking for the full 30 days to occasionally we get somebody that asks for 1 day, which I thought was interesting, not expected. So usually those don't ever go anywhere but the building. And sometimes they've already communicated with somebody, and as soon as we get that information, I get an email that says, hey, I wanted to donate a day to Liz because I knew that she was going to ask for one. So we just facilitate that to make it as quick and easy as we can so that it doesn't bog down. Yeah, I think we started off with close to 200 days, and it's taken us a couple of years, but we used all of them. And then this spring, I'm going to say it was maybe February, we started to get, we ran out of the days. So we had sort of the request started to come in that we needed to send that message out.
we have heard of a couple of instances where people have said they weren't allowed to donate days, and we didn't know why that would be the case.
If they,
Other than the 10, like, the person I'm specifically thinking of, I know has at least 10 sick days built up.
Right. The only one that I can think of that we didn't was one that did not have enough days.
Okay. So, but, like, let's say Jill knows she wants days, and she just mentions it to me, and I've got a ton of days built up. I can't just contact you and say, hey, Jill needs some days, we talked about it, can I donate 5 days to her?
No, she still needs to fill out the form and submit it.
Okay.
That way we have a record so that if for some reason no one can come back and say, well, I never said that, or I
Okay.
never, even though we would have the emails and all that,
Right,
it's just a safeguard and for clerical reasons. That way we've got a specific request from that person, and then and we still have that person fill out the form that says I'm going to donate X number of days or whatever, so that we can keep track of it.
okay. And then I noticed it says you have to have a physician statement attached. Is that, I mean, you just have like,
If someone's sick of
so
the
if someone's,
family.
well, I was thinking of like, so if you were using it for maternity leave or paternity leave.
Right, and typically those folks usually have FMLA paperwork anyway, so we just use that.
But what if it wasn't a training, like, let's say someone has someone ill or whatever, they would just show that the
Right.
person's sick.
Ideally, yeah, we would want
Maybe a
something,
parent or.
right, just something that would demonstrate that they're not just using the days for something that they shouldn't be.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, but yeah, so other than someone just saying, hey, only give days, we haven't really been not allowing people to donate. Okay.
No.
They would just need to, that person, if Liz would just need to wait for you to send out, and then she would say, now.
Right, I would say,
Correct.
hey, Jill, I would love to give you days, but you need to make sure HR knows that you want days.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right, there's no point in going back over number 1. Number 2, which is the driver's education increase, I think we have a tentative agreement on that. Just make sure that
Correct.
we are in agreement. Okay, we'll go to number 3, which is the district's suggestion to change the wording on the formula for the sick leave buyback upon retirement to where it would be much more simple and just $96 up to the 100 days, which are possible now. Any thought on that?
We had talked about this in our little meeting after our last group meeting, and we had talked about how, well, most of us, including myself, hadn't read through that whole section. It's quite daunting of a read.
It is. It is.
And so we definitely agree that simplifying that section of the contract would definitely benefit teachers so that we can understand better, what they're looking at. And we hate to hear of your story of someone not getting what that percentage would be because of that proratedness.
Right.
So we're seeing ourselves needing to caucus this time, so
Okay.
I think we can give you a definitive answer on that number 3 probably after our caucus.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Tuition incentive, the totals, and I think I sent you the kind of the breakdown, just took the names off. The total submissions, 22,257.50. That's higher than any year in recent time by a significant margin. And it'll end up being prorated this year as a result of that, which has not been the case in any recent time. I think that is one, I suspect that that's probably a result because we made the change last year and people were aware of it. So we got more folks turning things in and more hours turned in. I think our thought is we'd like to wait and see where that is in a year so we can determine whether or not what would be an appropriate move at that time, whether the amount this time is an anomaly or if it's closer to where we would be normally.
Okay. Yeah, because according to the spreadsheet that you sent, we had 155 hours turned in.
I think so.
Yeah. Now, there are, looks like 32 people
That sounds right.
that requested hours. I mean, we were gonna increase number of hours anyway because we increased the number of hours that they could submit for from 4 to 6. Did those numbers go up?
Yes.
Like the number of people submitting
Yeah.
also went up?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the original are ones that do not have degrees that we've hired that are working towards getting a degree. What's the, it says working towards original. Like, just they don't have a degree yet.
Right, because there are folks that the state has allowed with, typically it's CTE. If they have an industry credentials, they have the ability to work towards getting their original degree in education using essentially all the classes that they would take in their content area, they're given credit for. But they still have to take classes at the same time to get that.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's good.
I mean, but that could be also the reason why. There's more than usual.
Interesting.
So we'd say maybe table that. 5, supplemental pay.
I'll do that. I left them in the other room. I have a whole stack. I don't know about right now. That would be my one.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Hi. Hi, friend. How are you? It's been a day. Yeah. A headache came on about 3:30 and I'm like, I think it's prepping me.
We had a request, okay, sorry about that. Let's go to my back. We had a request from the middle school music teacher. He had noted that the orchestra and the band teacher both have a middle school stipend supplemental along with their middle school pay, and that he did not. I asked him to do a write-up kind of what he does outside of the duty day that would signify and require, need a stipend. And so he did that. That is what you're looking at. Currently, the middle school orchestra teacher and band instructor both get a 4% middle school stipend.
Typically, and you may not have the answer to this, so I don't know. Typically, aren't the choir, the middle school and the high school choir performances on the same day?
I did look into that one specifically, and yes, according to next year's calendar, all but one are on the same evening.
Okay. The initial thought on that would be potentially to maybe look and have him keep track of the specific amount of time so that we could look at that. But we're going to caucus probably here in a little bit, so we'll kind of just put that off to the side for right now.
Okay.
Make sense? And I forgot, this was, Lisa, you had asked for ESSER SPED expenditures that are going away, and those are the two that she had. ESSER 1, 72,792, and ESSER 2 SPED, which is 216,836. Before I forget again, and you each have a copy of that.
Okay, so on the supplemental, was this the only one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Extra duty pay. Were there specific instances where where there had been things denied?
So, we talked about that. None of us had an email specifically that said, I told him. It's all, well, so-and-so told me that, and so-and-so. So very anecdotal examples. What our kind of proposal with that one would be going forward is that to encourage our building reps to talk to their teachers, make sure that, when we were asking for a extra duty for coverage, we kept track of it for a year. So I think going forward, maybe that's what we'll ask to do, is ask for building reps to keep track of anybody who does not get paid for something that they're doing outside of the duty day with students, and maybe have a better idea on that.
Absolutely, that makes perfect sense. That way we've got some statistics and some numbers to look at.
And
That gives
encourage-
us a year.
And encourage our teachers to put in, they
Yeah.
could say, oh, well, so-and-so didn't get paid for this. Well, did they fill out the form?
Right.
So,
There are
Well,
some
and I
variables.
had made a note that if it is denied, could it be sent to admin anyway? So they know what was requested, even if it was denied at the
Sure.
school level, the building level?
Sure.
Because that would give more information to admin
Right.
as to what
Yeah.
is being denied.
Right. I like that.
I think that sounds good. Salary placement.
We had a conversation about this too. We kind of came to the conclusion that, and we kind of looked at different situations throughout the district on people that we know are in this situation where they have worked in a field before, and, that every situation is so different.
It is.
That we are not sure that we can adequately put in the contract that would be broad enough to benefit everybody. Like, you don't want to get too specific. And so from us, our encouragement would be to, keep making sure that what we are offering these professionals who might not have a teaching license but do have experience in the field, make sure that we're offering them enough money where they are feeling compensated and encouraging them to continue in the field of teaching and to get that degree. And so take into account their years of service within that field when putting them on the salary schedule.
I think that's reasonable, and I would say when we run across some of those, what we can do is we can also reach out to you and Mary and communicate what the thought process is so that we're kind of all on the same page.
We would love for our colleagues to be fabulous colleagues and to be have great teachers for our students and great colleagues for ourselves to work with. And if that means that that person doesn't have previous teaching experience, but that they are eager to learn, and then we are more than welcome to have them join us.
Good deal. Recording leave, and I think this was the idea that you guys had floated was instead of a half day and a full day, to have it be hourly. When I looked at the system and what we can do within the system, and then tried to also figure out, you've got elementary and you've got secondary, which are different. And even at the secondary, how long a period is for the high school versus the middle school is different. So what we could do and what we would propose, and I think this one probably is an easy one for you guys, we would propose changing it to a 0.25. That ends up being a little less than 2 hours, depending on if you calculate it based upon the 7 hours and 15-minute day. Thoughts on that?
So at the high school, it would be a class period, a block period. At
Right.
the middle school, it would be a little over 2 class periods. So like
Yeah.
you could miss 2 class periods, right?
And then we would cover it probably most likely internally.
Right,
Yes.
right. We wouldn't
Put
be,
it actually in the,
and you would, and I think looking at it, we can put it into the system as your absence is a 0.25 as opposed to a 0.5 like it is right now, or
So-
1.
Speaking of putting that into the system.
Sure.
Because teachers put their own absences, like if they're,
Mhm.
it's a, arranged absence, we put into a system ourselves. You would want them to put it in as a 0.25 and then no sub required or sub required?
I would say put sub-required, because that's going to alert us to the fact that there's going to be someone needed.
Okay,
My fear would be if we have a sub and they're available, and they may be there for a half day or whatever the case may be, I tentatively I would say yes, put it in that the sub's needed, but I think that could change. I think
Okay.
that may be one we have to work through. I'm not nearly smart enough to make that leap, how that will work out better, but I think that's one we can adjust as we go along. And the change to the 0.25 is pretty simple. You guys good with the 0.25?
that will be another topic we talk about.
Okay. Parental leave language. Did you guys find any specific language?
Lindsay did not email me any specific language, but I was hoping that we could talk about, I feel like language can be something that we do second, if we can
Mhm.
come to an agreement on the overall idea and days on that.
Looking at a cost, based upon the last 2 years, we would have spent roughly $15,000 each year, give or take a little bit, one way or the other. The variable we don't know is, to be very honest, those are all females that we have, because we're able to know that because of their maternity leave. Not that males couldn't have taken off, but we haven't in the past tracked that the same way. I think it would be reasonable to expect that could potentially end up being closer to a $30,000 cost for like 5 days. And I think that we would be all right with the idea of looking at adding 5 days of parental leave. And I know you guys will want to talk about that, but that I think is, again, I think we would have to at least anticipate that it would be $30,000 that it would cost the district. Now, having said that, I may come back in a year if we would move forward with this, and we may say, okay, it was a whole lot more than what we thought. Because I think there are some variables that it's impossible to know until we do it. Days on duty and length of duty day. Were there any specific buildings that teachers weren't given enough time, or specific instances that you can help us understand that better?
It's not that anybody is doing anything wrong. Like,
Okay,
it's not that there's a building that is going rogue and, having all these meetings and whatnot. The district, I feel like, has made it clear to building principals that you need to give teachers a workday. You can split it with a half a workday here, a half a workday there, and whatnot. The issue is that because we are a large district, not every meeting comes from the building. And so while some teachers or most teachers would have classroom time, there is definitely a group that have meetings scheduled. So for example, the special ed department might schedule all kinds of meetings, and those teachers miss their classroom time. There's not a protected time district-wide that says, no, you need to let teachers work.
so maybe something that would be more uniformity in the schedule would help.
Yes,
If that, we may have to think on that one a little bit.
okay.
Um,
And that's the beginning of the year. We have all those days at the beginning of the year. After winter break, we've always had the one day, and in my past 22 years of teaching, that one day has always just been meetings. It's not ever been classroom time. You might randomly get classroom time because maybe your meeting ran short, or something happened and it didn't happen, but it's scheduled for all day meetings.
Okay. And I know you and I are working on the general language cleanup stuff. Salary. You guys have anything you want to throw out as a beginning amount?
We don't at this time, but while we're talking about salary,
Sure.
it's an allowable conversation just because it's part of salary, but there have been, and I don't know district-wide, I mean, you guys would know how many people I've had to cover within classrooms, but it's a lot. I know even with just in the building that I was in. We're just wondering, are we doing something more with, are we encouraging subs? Are we, what are we doing? Because it was getting to the point, especially towards the end of the year, where teachers were thinking that $22 was not enough to be subbing.
I will tell you a couple of things. This year, our sub-fill rate dropped almost 10%. Now that's not talking about teachers filling another class on their plan or anything like that. Let me look here. So, earlier this year, we had 102 active subs. But obviously, some of those weren't really active. They were active in that they were in the system, but they didn't actually. 69 active subs based upon subbing history. There were 13 of those 102 had worked 0 days. And I know we've talked about this before. We have folks that will only sub for certain people.
Right, or in certain buildings or.
Certain buildings, certain days.
And I will tell you frequently, those are folks that are never gone. So they are in the system and they're there, but they're not, they're active, but they're not active. We had 6 subs that worked over 100 days and 20 subs that had worked between 50 and 99 days. And the average number of days that they worked was 32. Median days was 20. Obviously the challenge, we would say that right now we're down to where we have 97 active in the system. And again, we ended up, final numbers were 10 subs over 100 days, and the average number of assignments was 42. We did hire this spring 2 full-time subs that we utilized, and one of them, well, neither one of them will be subs next year, let's put it that way. One of them took a job in another district, and the other one, I believe, is going to be with us. We look to try and hire them as much as possible, and I would say as much help from you guys as we can get in trying to continue to recruit. But the same challenge is everywhere. There isn't any district that I know of that doesn't have this as a problem. I would tell you that we've even talked to one of the placement systems where they say, well, we'll find you your subs. And when I told them our average fill rate is right around 80%. And that's district-wide. There are certain buildings that are harder than others. And when I told them 80%, they were really wanted to have our business, but they couldn't give us any kind of a guarantee that they could do anywhere close to 80%. And not working here and with the folks that we have, that didn't do us a whole lot of good. So spending extra money to have a service do the same thing that we're going to do doesn't help. I'm more than happy to hear any suggestions on finding more subs. We'll raise the daily sub rate for just a regular sub from 120 to 125, which is as high as anybody, and there's nobody that pays as much as we do on the long-term subs.
Do you have information on how many hours our teachers covered this last year?
Not with me, no.
I think it would be interesting to see how many hours that staff are having to cover.
We can look to see if we can get that.
We just know there's been frustration with, I mean, we all understand that things happen, you have to cover. But when someone's asked to cover like their whole plan, that's the only time that, that's their only plan. Or at the middle school during their plan and their team time. And that means they have nothing that day. It's multiple times. It's frustrating, and then you're just doing all that stuff not during your plan.
Right.
All those copies, everything gets made after school, before school. It's just hard to be a creative teacher without the time.
And you said
Absolutely.
you're increasing the sub pay $5, right?
Mhm.
So, consider, increasing what you're paying the teachers that are having to cover, So maybe it's not the same ones that are covering sometimes daily. Something to consider.
Okay. Well, let's do this to at least get the ball rolling. We would throw out as an initial offer on salary schedule $900 a cell.
Does that include step and lateral?
The $900 is not part of step and
No,
ladder.
but-
That's it. Yeah, yeah.
including, so.
Yeah, you would,
Lateral.
yes, I'm following you, yep. Yep, step and lateral movement and $900 a cell.
Okay, and then that is on top of the MH60 getting,
Correct, that 1,500 is already,
Okay.
that was already agreed upon.
And still adding the 50 per month on that insurance.
Correct.
And we don't have numbers yet though.
No,
okay. Can we caucus for 15 minutes? 15 minutes?
sure.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
525, sure. Okay,
Okay,
so,
on the agenda, we're starting down at number 3, it
Yep.
looks like.
Yep.
We are excited about the $96 a day. I think we as a team thought that made that easy for teachers. It was the max that teachers were going to get anyway, if the proration wasn't there. So teachers aren't losing anything in that, and for future teams, it's a lot easier to up the $96 a day than it is to try to figure out the formula that was there. So, we are
Yay.
good. I think we have a TA on number 3.
tentative agreement, good.
Tuition incentive, we were good with waiting to see what would happen next year. We did take note that if you take out the originals, that people just getting their masters, was right below the max, which we thought was an interesting thing. It was just something we noticed.
Right.
And so, yeah, we're good at kind of waiting to see what would happen. We didn't know if you could tell based on who submitted, especially for like their masters, basically who submitted, if this was their last year to submit, if they were still gonna be submitting next year, or if they were done.
Yeah, we'll look at all that too. And then when we visit next year, what we can do is we'll have all that. We can
Okay.
go back and we can compare and,
Right. Okay. Supplementals was on you guys, and I assume you were gonna wanna look at that in more in depth.
yeah, I think here would be the proposal that we would have. We'd like to see what the number of hours that it looks like, to keep track of it this year and potentially have that as an item that we would maybe visit again next year. And I know it's a tough thing when you have to sit back and you have to go back and think, well, I think I spent this much time. Knowing now that the potential is that a year from now, we would be able to have that discussion with some statistics, and we can have the administrator and the individual can keep track of it, and then we can take a look at it and we can see, yeah, that, you know, the number of hours, I guess 4% may not be the right percent.
Right.
It may be 2%, it may be 6%. I don't, you know, that's the tough part, but that would be, our suggestion would be that we track that this year
Okay.
and then take a look at it maybe next year.
I can reach out to that individual. Number 6, extra duty, we kind of covered that earlier, asking buildings to keep track on that one. Salary placement, we also kind of covered that earlier.
Yep.
Recording leave, we had an in-depth conversation about that one during our caucus, and we haven't come to an agreement on that one yet. Could we continue to discuss that
Yeah.
amongst our group? Okay. Parental leave, we think 5 days is fabulous.
Okay,
We would love to put that into our contract.
tentative
Have a
agreement.
TA on the 5 days for parental leave.
Yay.
On item 26, days on duty, length of duty, my team would like me to be more specific in my asking.
Mhm.
So
Sure.
I
here,
love that.
here is the asking. We would like to make sure that every staff member has a day without meetings, whether that's a half day and a half day. We don't care, but a day without meetings at the beginning of the year, any meetings, okay, and then a half day after winter break. So whether that day after winter break is just half day meetings, half day work day, that would be fabulous.
But remember, there is a half-day workday at the start of Christmas break.
That's great cards.
That's grade card, it's not work day. It's half day with kids, half
What's
day
the
grade card.
difference?
Grade card is, well, if you're a secondary.
Well, I mean, I know that,
Well,
but
So, okay, I can only go with my experience.
Okay.
So when I was a secondary teacher, that half day grade card, like half day at the end, I was grading my finals, getting my grades put in for the classes that I had, making sure all of that was wrapped up. And then, you go on break, but I started brand new classes second semester because all of my classes were only a semester long. So I had to go into the computer, take all of my kids out of that class, put all brand new kids in, do syllabi all over again, all of that kind of stuff, but I didn't have a work day to do it
so when did you do it?
on my own time,
And about how long did it take?
about a half a day.
Okay.
I mean, I had the same, you reuse the same syllabi, but at the time you were making copies, but because I taught technology, the same thing goes on. I had to distribute files to the kids, but the same thing now happens with Schoology. So if you're teaching a semester-long class, you have to make sure that your Schoology files are all set up. You have to make sure that the kids that you have in your class are in your Schoology class. There's just different things that have to get done before you see kids.
Okay.
We will talk about that the next caucus we have.
So we would like to counter with step and lateral. Okay, so we're just gonna all just assume step and lateral
Yep.
and, okay, just checking. All right. We would like to agree on the 50 days of, sorry, 50 days.
50 days.
50 days. We would like to agree on the $50 for the insurance.
Mhm.
Okay. But we would like to counter for the Purcell at 2,000.
2,000. Okay. All right.
Where's my?
We need to probably caucus on that. How about 6 minutes? That'd put us back at 5:40.
Okay.
Okay?
Oh, I forgot. Sorry.
Do you want to say
Did you forget?
while we're here?
No, we're good.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's,
Before we get to there,
sure.
this is what we were talking about. We were like, oh, we forgot. So on the handouts you gave us for ESSER, I think there was a bit of a miscommunication because what you gave us was, this is what was paid out of ESSER for SPED, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I think what was asked for, and Jill, correct me if I'm wrong. I think what was asked for was what is currently being paid or was paid out of ESSER that now has to be absorbed by
Yeah,
the
what's
rest, like,
What's this
People-
increase? What's this
people are
596
wondering why
increase?
there has been and continues to be a large increase in sped money getting paid for sped items every year,
Okay.
and what that's going towards.
Like it says we're having an increase, sped programming cost increased 596, and it was increased the year before too. What are we spending that increase on? That's what we're asking.
Okay.
Show us that, that's what.
I
Does
will,
that make sense? Does
Yeah.
that help?
I can give you close, Lisa will be able to give you better exact numbers, I know she's looked into it. Some of that is salaries, a large part of that is transportation, and then a large part of it, or some of it is, as we can't hire like an SLP, it costs us double to contract that out.
right,
Which we saw, I believe, last year or the year before.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so, we're just going by straight our expenditures, like that number comes straight from, we spent 8 point something one year, 9 point something the next year, and then we're up to almost 9.8 or something like that this last year or something like that. I may have those off, but we're in the $9 million range for our spend expenditures.
Okay. So I think that's what we were.
Yeah, that's what we're wanting to
Okay.
see, yeah.
all right. We would, and again, step column, all that. We would counter your 2,000 with 1,200.
Okay. We would obviously need to talk about that as a team. During our last 6 minutes, we still have not come to an agreement on the 0.25.
Okay,
And so we will need to meet, we will need to meet again, just over that, for probably a longer period of time. So I think we've probably reached where we can, as far as we can get tonight, if we are comfortable.
do you want to talk about the 1,200 or?
You guys want to talk about 1,200?
I haven't got any calls
In
yet.
calls, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, probably for next time would be my preference. Let it sit
I just have to get to Logan by 6 and it's real far away. I mean, we can go one more time, we can go 5 minutes. Okay.
I haven't gotten any calls, the house isn't burning down yet.
What's the, just out of curiosity, and you can tell me you don't know, but what's the hang up on the 0.25?
Just some different ways buildings are doing things and teachers not sure how that would affect it.
Gotcha.
So we just need to have some more conversation about it.
Cool.
5 minutes?
5 minutes? So 50, yep. So at this time, we do not have a counter for a couple of reasons. Actually, one really large reason. We're hoping to have more information about insurance. And without our insurance numbers, we can't really take much into account.
Okay. Okay. June 21st, 9 o'clock,
Correct.
right here. That's what we'll plan on doing.
And if you get insurance numbers between now and then, and if you
I
email
can,
them, okay.
Yep,
Then that
I'll let
way,
you know.
because we are meeting as a group before that meeting, we're meeting on Thursday as a group, so if we have those numbers, we can talk a little bit more about that.
absolutely.
Okay.
Will we have coffee that morning?
We could, we could.
Aren't you in charge of it?
No.
I'm not a cotton breeder.
I was just saying, mine or mine.
I can bring my own coffee.
Anybody else anything about this?
Okay,
Ready, break?
Ready, break?
ready, break.
Have a good evening.
Have fun at Logan.